have you ever had that problem where, like friends divorce, and then you have to choose, who it is you're going to stay talking to and who you now have to shun?
I would stay with the woman in all cases, and that, number one, I'm saying that so that I get a lot of credit with my own wife and some of my friends, but stay with the woman.
The woman is always right.
Exactly. So stay with them. Stay friends with them. Forget the men.
But yeah, men don't have friends, so it shouldn't really be an issue, frankly.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone, to the Two Real Cinema Club. My name is Andres Lorente.
And I am James Rosica. And at the Two Real Cinema Club, we watch two movies every episode. A new movie that's out in the cinemas now, or maybe streaming. And we watch an old movie that it has some kind of connection with. One new, one old. This week it's two films, but only 1.5 titles between them. We have watched... The Roses, the new Benedict Cumberbatch, Olivia Coleman picture, which is out in cinemas at the moment, and we are comparing it to the 1989 classic based on the same property, The War of the Roses. This is the first time that we have watched a film that is named after one of us.
I never would have guessed that. In fact, I don't think that's true.
So Rosica means rose.
Oh, that's right.
So it means Miss Little Rose. This film is basically about me.
Razor.
There's a big problem with a film called The Roses, which is that, like anyone in the UK, especially anyone who's ever worked in a hospital, knows that roses actually means it's a box of chocolates that had a very successful ad campaign many years ago, which was "Say Thank You with Roses," meaning that whenever you would, for years and years, whenever you would discharge a patient home, you would be guaranteed to get a small box of roses. And I'm never going to turn down chocolate, and I'm always grateful when people give the hospital staff little gifts. But there was a point about 15 years ago when I think I and everyone else in the health service was eating about 2 or 3 times their body weight in roses every year. It wasn't good for anyone.
What if the patient didn't survive and was discharged as a corpse? Would you still get roses? Or
I think then you would just get a lawsuit and some angry looks.
I'm glad they treat you that well. I don't think we do that here in this country at all. I was wondering if it was the other way around. Like if a patient was discharged, then you'd give the patients the chocolates. Because that way they're not...
Yeah, people who had crushing central chest pain and furred up arteries, we were giving them big boxes of chocolates to go home with. See you soon.
Die happy.
So, The Roses, 2025 film, based on the book The War of the Roses by Warren Adler. Yeah. No surprise, I have also read the book. So I will tell you a little bit about the book later on. But first of all, we should talk about the new film, I suppose.
Yes, that's part of our job here. And this is one of those weeks, we don't always watch the same film twice, but we've done it a little bit lately, so... Going back to Superman and such, but these are slightly different properties. The Roses 2025 is directed by Jay Roach, who has an interesting resume, pretty impressive. Meet the Fockers, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Borat, Trumbo, Bombshell. So a mix of some comedy and some drama, and
all those Austin Powers pictures.
Yeah, the Austin Powers pictures too. Yeah,
that was him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting fact about Jay Roach. Yeah, I'm sure you've probably done this in your research, but I didn't know this. You know who he's married to?
Oh, yes, I did see that, but I've forgotten already.
It's Susanna Hoffs, out of the Bangles.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Someone I have not thought of for many years, but I'm glad that...
Are they still married? We've been talking so much about
good point. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder whether you would make this film if you weren't still married, or it'll be too raw for you.
It'd be an invitation to divorce. Oh, boy. Tony McNamara wrote the script. We've seen his stuff recently. We talked about Poor Things last year.
We did.
The Favorite, those are both films with, is it Lanthimos, Yorgos Lanthimos. So he's obviously a writer in demand in the last few years, and he's done stuff. That's, 2 films with Olivia Coleman, I guess, so... There's a little networking there. This is Olivia Coleman won for one of his scripts, The Favorite. She plays Ivy Rose, and her husband is played by Benedict Cumberbatch, who is Theo.
I'm going to go back to Tony McNamara for a second.
Because
he wrote Cruella, I think, which is like the first big picture that I'm aware of, which is really not very good. But he also created Doctor. which is an Australian TV series.
Oh.
Well, I can't quite figure out whether it's named after the Thompson Twins song or named after the famous joke. I'm presuming it's named after the joke. I'd never seen this, but I did read up about it. This series, right, so it's an Australian TV series about a high-flying heart surgeon, and he's punished by a medical tribunal, and his punishment is that he is forced to work as a GP in like a rural hospital.
Ah.
And maybe only doctors will find this funny, but I consider that offensive in a number of different ways. I'm sure that all my GP friends would be delighted that people in TV consider their job a punishment, and that a heart surgeon would just be able to easily step in and do a GP's job without any further training. So that just reading about that got my back up in a number of different ways. And that's just me.
Because he got you mad, now I'm mad too.
Sympathy madness.
Stand up for the doctors. Oh, goodness. Shall I tell you a story about some roses? Not all roses, but some?
Oh, yes, please.
This is interesting. It opens on white from the credits. It's sort of like a napkin or a paper towel. We see these sort of threaded credits coming up. It's quite clever. And that comes back sort of at the end. So it does open and close on similar grounds. But Ivy and Theo Rose begin in couples therapy as they struggle in their marriage. But they savagely attack one another with statements that were meant to bring them together. Their therapist is really bewildered by how hostile they are to each other in their homework about writing things about their partner, things that they like, and they don't seem to like very much about one another. We're immediately taken back to the birth of their relationship in London when Theo was a fledgling architect and Ivy was ready to move to the States to become a chef and a baker. We then turn around and find them, well, after they have consummated their relationship within a few minutes of meeting each other.
In the storeroom, not the only time that happens during the film.
No, exactly, yeah. We get a call back on that later. We then turn around and we find them 10 years later in marital bliss in California. They have young children who are growing heavy on sugar, according to Theo, but perfectly undisciplined, according to the raspberry allergic Ivy. So they have different parenting styles. She opens a restaurant after Theo suffers a disastrous setback. He's designed a building that collapses in a severe storm, and their roles sort of change because Theo becomes the primary caregiver to the children, who sort of fear and respect him and eventually adore him. Ivy becomes this superstar chef, and she's kind of like the figurehead of this restaurant empire that she's building. Will the therapy save their marriage, or will they drive one another insane to the point where all manners of spousicide, is that a word? Spousicide.
It is now.
Are on the antique Spanish table, including knives, guns, ceramics, cookware, and raspberries.
We're only about 5 minutes into the podcast, and there is already a medical fact which is also getting my back up, which is that there is an EpiPen used at least 3 times, I think, in this film.
Yes.
Maybe even 4. It's at least 3 times, I think. And just for anybody who is curious, that is not how EpiPens work. But they make the same mistake 3 times over.
Wait a second. No, it's blue to the sky, red to the thigh. Right? That's what we're taught at school.
Yeah, the thing which is kind of winding me up a little bit is that you can have like a life-threatening reaction, but then you can be back making jokes and running around 15 seconds later on.
Yeah, you're supposed to call 911, I believe.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I think EpiPen is not the end of the story.
Oh.
We'll ring the spoiler bell in a minute, but I have got, apart from being annoyed at how an EpiPen works, I have got a couple of things, kind of non-spoilery things to say about the film. And the first, which we sort of alluded to already, is the blooming title. So this film is kind of based on the book The War of the Roses, kind of based on the previous film The War of the Roses, and yet they have landed on the title The Roses.
Yeah.
Which is I do not understand why it is called The Roses when War of the Roses was right there.
Yeah.
It's a pun. It has brand recognition. People know the old film. And the British audience, at least, I'll ask you whether the American audience will know this. The British audience will know of the historical War of the Roses. We all learn about it in school.
Yep.
It's the whole reason why the family is called the Roses. And so not having War of the Roses be the name.
Yeah.
It's like I was trying to it's like the perfect title was handed to them on a plate.
Yeah.
And not only did they reject the gift, but they dropped the plate and then stepped on one of the broken pieces and had to go to hospital for a series of operations to rebuild their foot. It's such a huge miss, and I don't understand why they've done it.
I listened to an interview with Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Coleman on public radio here, and the interviewer said she called it a remake, and they immediately shot her down and said, no, it's not a remake, it's based on the original film. I think they're distancing themselves from the original film, because the original film I don't think is that well remembered, I guess, or well regarded. So they might be trying to distance themselves from the original film, which I agree with you. I think it's a mistake, but it was interesting to see how quickly they corrected her. And then after I've seen the two films, to me, it does feel like a remake. I don't think it's that.
Yeah.
It borrows very closely from the original film. So I think they're trying to distance themselves from it. That was my guess after hearing the interview and seeing the movie and thinking about the titles.
But it means that you're left with this kind of no man's land title that sort of means nothing, really.
Exactly.
I kind of think, what is it about? A garden? Is it about those chocolates from Cadbury's? What is it about? Who are the roses? Why? What? Yeah.
Even the thorny roses or something that makes it, you realize that it's not all pretty, that there's an edge to it.
There we go. Like in 15 seconds, you have come up with a better title. Didn't we say 2 weeks ago, you should spend 60% of your energy trying to come up with a good title? There you go. You've already done it. Unbelievable. I'll take my hat off to you.
Well,
yes, exactly. The thorny roses. That
makes more sense.
The roses.
And it communicates more, I think. But it is called The Roses, for sure.
The other kind of non-spoilery thing.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you, do you feel, as I came away feeling, that there are significant bits of this film which are improvised?
Oh.
I'm pretty sure that Jay Roach, when he made the Austin Powers movies, they would just set up the cameras and they would get the cast to kind of busk around a little bit and improvise and then put the best gags in.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether that is a kind of modus operandi for him. Because this film, to me, in part feels improvised. That opening scene where the two of them have got little notebooks and they're sitting on the sofa and they're telling the therapist insulting things about each other. That really, really feels like Olivia Coleman and Benedict Cumberbatch have been told to go off and spend half an hour writing down funny things in a notebook, and they've just come up and said them to camera and tried to make each other laugh.
Yeah.
I suspect that a surprising amount of this film may have been improvised.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is it's probably more the group stuff where there are a number of people around, as opposed to a lot of the intense conversations between them, and a lot of the banter felt like it was written. But I think if that happened at all, there's a dinner scene or two, or the firing range thing. I think some of that stuff was probably improvised, because you're working with Adam Sandberg and Kate McKinnon as well. So I think they're likely to make suggestions and say some things off the cuff to see what happens. So I think that's a pretty good guess. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Kate McKinnon, Andy Samberg, those are funny people.
Exactly.
They are funny people. This film should be funnier, but spoiler, I did not laugh.
Ooh, that's the spoiler bell right there.
Should we ring the spoiler bell?
I did not laugh.
Right, yeah. For the death of comedy, here tolls the bell. So we went to see it at the local Odeon, and there was a reasonably large crowd who had attended, a crowd of largely older people. It's not a movie for young people. And I must say, a lot of them were chuckling away and really enjoying the film.
Yeah.
I did not really crack much of a smile for the whole 2-hour duration.
Yeah. I had probably a handful of kind of very loud laughs. And a lot of it was, I was taking notes. I wasn't trying to get some ideas down at the same time. So, but similarly,
you were writing your own gags, which were better than the gags in the movie. Yep.
I would have written this, which I think is funny. I think, and they might have been bits that were sort of improvised. I agree with you that some of that stuff is funny, because Olivia Coleman's funny. Cumberbatch can be funny, obviously. So you've got some people here that could definitely get some laughs out of, I don't know, less funny material. We also saw it on a Saturday night, so there was a pretty good crowd, but you're right, older, and boy, I was there with the in-laws. We brought the average age way up. Ooh. But yeah, I think a lot of people found it funny and, I don't know, inoffensive. I laughed. I laughed a little bit. I wouldn't say that I loved this film, but it didn't offend me at all. It didn't harm me. I felt safe the whole time, which is never a good thing. But
I mean, they do drop a number of C-bombs. I think the intention is slightly to shock.
Yeah, exactly.
And I might mention something about that when the cliche squad comes calling later on.
For sure.
But I think they are sort of intending maybe to shock a little bit.
Yeah.
Though interestingly, the way that you talk about it being full of material, I think is part of one of my complaints about the way that the film works. I think this film really struggles with authenticity, which is something that we bang on and on and on about, every episode. But I think it's super important to the experience of going to see a film. Good writing is authentic. Good filmmaking is authentic, and this film feels very inauthentic to me.
Yeah.
And the way that it is written, the way that it is delivered, kind of reminds me of one of the great sins of the world of stand-up comedy. So I did comedy for about 3 years. Wasn't very good at it, but one of the things I learned is that amongst comedians, using your material in conversation is one of the cardinal sins.
Ooh.
So comedians spend a lot of time working out their gags, honing their gags. The exact words that you use, the exact timing and rhythm are really important for whether it is funny or not. And people hone and polish and polish and hone.
Yeah.
But then if you bring up your gags in conversation, try to pass it off like you've just thought of something funny, people will give you such a black look.
Oh, wow.
It's a real cardinal sin. People will call you out for it. And this film really feels like material being passed off as conversation. It has that kind of tone for me, which is maybe one of the reasons why I felt so po-faced in the audience.
Interesting. So that's not just free practice time among pals and colleagues. It's a sin to do that. You can't.
Yeah, it's considered bad form.
Wow.
Yeah, to use your material in conversation. Material is for the stage and not for the pub.
Well, I like your authenticity theme. For me, it's so much about identity crises among all the characters to a certain extent. And there's a difference between character arc and identity crisis, I think. And they can obviously reflect one another, but we go from the Ivy having this identity crisis. She'd just as soon smoke cannabis and bake cakes for her family all day. And then she becomes, the superstar, the breadwinner, and the sort of the rock of the family. And Theo, in the meantime, has gone from really not paying attention to his kids to really just questioning himself. And he has this massive failure in architecture and can't get back into it. So he has this identity crisis. And the kids are changing because they go from being the primary caregiver being Ivy to the primary caregiver being Theo. So they change from sugar-addled kids who are gaining a little bit extra weight to these rock star athletes and joggers and health nuts, and it's there's just this there's no steadiness in any of the characters. It's like constant change. So as a result, I think you do get these character arcs, but they don't feel authentic because they're just constantly changing their ways, or they just are constantly in identity crisis. And I think there's a line to be drawn there somewhere. But as a result, I don't think you have one character making one clean journey. It's really all about kind of tension that just comes out of nowhere. I mean, they seem like a great couple. They get along. They're laughing at even the most evil things they say to one another. And yet, for the purposes of the comedy, they blow up and do really ridiculously violent things to each other at some points. And you wonder, why are they doing that? They don't seem to be, that hostile to one another in really in their psyches. It's just that it's for the purpose of a film and a story, we get this heightened tension and this heightened violence. It's kind of weird.
Harking back to authenticity again, I never really believed that Benedict Cumberbatch was an architect.
Yeah, hard to do.
I have got friends who are architects, and they complained a lot about how many lectures they have to go to.
Yeah,
structures is considered so important, but those are the lectures where you learn how to make buildings that don't fall down. I can only presume that Theo didn't go to his structures lectures. He doesn't really seem believable to me as an architect. I never believed that Olivia Coleman was a chef.
Yeah.
Like the very first time that you kind of see her, she's like, it's weird. So she's standing like alone in this sort of empty, pristine commercial kitchen, like preparing a fish, like on her own with just like one knife and one plate or something. It's a bit weird.
Yeah.
And then when we cut to 10 years later, she's like in the kitchen at home, she's making 7 different UK themed cakes all at once. And you think, well, who are these for? Why have you made 7 cakes? One shaped like a double-decker bus and one shaped like the Houses of Parliament or whatever. Yeah. What's this for? We established she's allergic to raspberries, but she has raspberries in the fridge all the time.
Times.
What? Why? The only reason to buy raspberries would be to further the plot. It makes no sense. Yeah. It doesn't feel at all kind of authentic. And even like the humour in the film, personally, I didn't feel that it felt witty. It just feels kind of spiteful and sarcastic. I came away at the end of the movie thinking, why did I spend a couple of hours with these people? They just seem awful.
Well, because someone wanted to make a comedy, and it was their version of comedy, and all those things happen just because the writers and the directors want them to happen, and not necessarily because they're natural to the actual nature of the characters. I think this is not really character-driven. And again, because of the authenticity, it doesn't seem like the characters would do anything that they're actually told to do, written to do.
Yes, it is character-driven insofar as things happen because the characters make these choices, but none of the choices are believable.
Yeah, precisely.
So then they aren't really real characters. So I agree, it feels like they're choosing the things they choose to further the plot and not because I believe that these are people making choices.
One thing that really bothered me was... the dialogue is very much on the nose. This is something that I think riles you quite a bit. It's like they tell you exactly what they're feeling all the time. And, it's interesting because this is all about a relationship and maybe it's strained and maybe they're kind of working on it and trying to be honest with one another. But, he tells us, I feel like shit. It's very clear that he's having a hard time adjusting to being the homemaker and the primary parent. And he just tells you that very clearly. And
have you ever met a British person who ever told you what their genuine feelings about anything?
No, that's where all the interest is.
It's not something we ever do. We never do that. We never talk about our feelings. Not honestly. It's impossible.
That's right. And that's not interesting. The repression is interesting, right?
We're good at that. Oh, yeah.
The failure to communicate. Yes, that's the good stuff. So it's just, everything's on the table. So it's all, this is a very easy film to watch because everything is spelled out right for you, and it sort of goes pretty much to plan. And they're very open about telling you what's happening and how they feel about what's happening. So it's uninteresting as a result. I was never super engaged with the characters or their lives because, as you said, they're not really nice people. I don't really want to spend a couple hours with them, and there's very little mystery to them, I guess. So. It makes it hard to get super interested. But for me, that's a real thumbs down. You need subtext, right? You need plots that's underneath the surface. It can't just all be surface level. And as a result, this is a perfectly good film in the sense that it's not meant to be a deep, ponderous piece. I'll talk about that when what's playing in my theater comes up, boy. But this is not that film. It's a light comedy. With some very talented people attached. So it comes off. It's definitely, it's in the theater. It's getting some hits and some views, I think. But this is not going to go down in history as anyone's best work, I don't think.
What you were saying just a minute ago, I know I've often said the same thing, but my favourite scenes, I think the best dialogue, the best written scenes are ones where the things that people are talking about and the meaning of the scene are diametrically opposed. Yeah. And I think if we had scenes in this movie where the characters are telling each other, I love you, you're wonderful, and yet the meaning of their words are, I can't stand you, I can't bear to be near you, then that makes an interesting scene. I agree, but people telling you what they're thinking and what they're feeling is not, that's not an interesting scene, not something that's fun to watch. I couldn't agree more. And
I think that's why this film is confusing at times, because they sort of do say those things, and I think they really mean them. But then the next minute they're saying absolutely awful things about one another and to one another, and I think they do mean those, So they say everything they actually mean. So there's actually no hidden meaning behind anything in the dialogue. So that's kind of a mark against it.
Poor Things also had a fairly on-the-nose script, didn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe this is kind of the kind of the groove that Tony McNamara plows. It's worth talking about opening and closing scenes because that's what I always bang on about, and I'm a terrible bore. The opening scene is this marriage therapist's office, which recurs about halfway through the movie. Yep. And I'm guessing that opening movie is just sort of telling you this is a film about two people slagging each other off. And and sure enough, the next 2 hours do meet that promise.
Yeah.
That really is. And then kind of it closes with the explosion, which is the fade to white. Now, were you suggesting that is supposed to be a mirror of the opening credits?
It felt like it, yeah.
Where it's all kind of played out against an animated napkin.
Yes, yeah, white to white, like, and it, obviously that's the kind of scene where you think maybe black, simply because it's a true end, perhaps on the living and dead dying thing. But here it does go to white. I don't know if we're supposed to have some sense of hope there, but it does. It opens very white. Like that whole credit sequence is. I would put on my sunglasses before seeing it. So that's the Two Wheel Family. If you go see this, get your sunglasses on at the beginning, and then right when you think it's about to end, put those sunglasses back on, because it's white, bright white. So I think on one level they're certainly trying to tell us something. I think the theme is like napkins and because she's in a restaurant, she's a chef.
I'm guessing that's it. I mean, I think that is the film's sort of biggest, most heartfelt nod to the 1989 film.
Yeah.
We'll probably come on to that, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that's sort of what they're trying to aim at.
Yeah. I guess I'll tell a little bit more of the story. I don't know if it's that necessary, but their careers are going in different directions, and they are going in different directions. And I think one thing the film kind of does well is this timing thing. Their timing is just obviously off, and they can't get back together on the same kind of timing. Like the midpoint is this trip to New York City where he gets super drunk on a plane because he's unhappy that he's no longer a successful architect. She's been sleeping, and then they get to New York, and then he's just sobering up just as she gets really drunk with her friends in a restaurant where she's making food and tasting food. And they're on the wrong timeline, and they end up sort of going back to California. She buys this land, beautiful piece of the California coast. He has a chance to construct his dream house. It's beautiful. It's incredible. He goes way over budget. The kids, at a very young age, they go off to some program for athletes. So they go to Florida, I think, and they're about 13 or 14 years old.
13 years old, yeah.
Sounds like it's
weird,
college or something. It's a really strange device to get them out of the scene, and they become early open nesters, as we call them. And they have this first dinner party with all the friends, and it's a disaster. She gets drunk again. And there's this obvious metaphor where she brings out this baked cake. She's made a cake that's a replica of the house, and then she ends up destroying the house right there at the dinner party. It's way on the nose as well. And then it's sort of a symbol that their relationship is ending. He saves a whale, but he discovers that he's having this spiritual moment. There's a whale on the beach, and then he helps save it with some other people walking by. They save the whale, push him out to sea. He has this spiritual moment that he wants a divorce, that he can't be happy with her. And then they start fighting over the house. And then this just sort of, it spins out of control at this point where they're violently really fighting over the house. And as you said, they don't exactly live happily ever after. They sort of make up at the very end, but then there's the explosion. It's really a really grim tale, ultimately.
And the film sort of oscillates between different kind of references that I wrote quite early on in my notes. This is one of those nice home movies like Paddington. There are they live in some very nice homes.
Oh, beautiful.
In this film. Even the home that they leave, the home that they are in at the start of the movie after they've been married for 10 years is a really lovely home.
Good place. Nice looking place.
Yeah, interestingly, all filmed in Devon, apparently. None of it shot in California, all filmed in Devon.
Yeah.
So like the film starts out, it's a little bit like Paddington, and then like halfway through it sort of turns into Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Yes,
I think,
definitely.
or at least it wants to be.
Yeah.
That's like the film that it would like to be.
Yeah.
And then in the end it becomes Home Alone, doesn't it? And it's kind of various different weird contraptions to set things on fire, or set things smashing over your head, or break a window, or whatever. I mean, it just sort of becomes a sort of a strange kind of cartoony fight.
Over the top. A lot of just suddenly we find ourselves seeing this over the top animosity and tension and ultimately violence. It's unbelievable. It's inauthentic. I think you really hit the nail on the head there.
And I can understand how in the script meeting, they can explain, well, some people find it difficult to cope when their spouse is more successful than they are, and fair enough. Okay, that's sort of the motor of the story. But wouldn't be surprised if very few of the people making the film had children of their own, because the children seem to be like a weird sort of afterthought orbiting the outside of the movie. The big clash is over, well, who will stay home and look after the children?
Yes.
If your restaurant is taking off. And never, ever does it occur to anybody in the movie that, oh, well, actually, professional childcare is available for, not too much money. If they can afford to build a dream house, they can probably afford a childminder for a few hours a day. It just seems strange that this is the thing they're going to argue over.
Yeah.
When they could both pursue their careers and, have some bouncy mid-European teen who comes and looks after the kids and have a great time. So the whole thing feels very inauthentic and improperly thought out.
I agree with you. What's the old saying, though? Isn't a rose just a rose by any other name? Because this film is
you've read that off my family crest, I believe.
That's right, the Rizikas. This film is very similar to that, but in the other film, we'll talk about it, but they do get a childminder, don't they? They get help.
They do.
It doesn't keep them together any better. It doesn't save the marriage, but...
You're right. Maybe having a childminder doesn't help. You're right. I tell you what, when the fighting does break out in this film, surprise, surprise, there is a knife, there is a gun, there is fire. The first person they should really have called is the Cliché Squad.
Cliché Squad.
There's more surveillance these days, so we should just expect that the Cliché Squad is always listening and always watching.
Oh my God. Well, if the Cliché Squad was surveilling me all the time, seriously, I'd be visiting 5 days a week, I think. There are kind of a bunch of cliches in this movie. The ones I wrote down on my list. The first one is people who confuse sarcasm for wit. So it's like this notion that saying cruel things about people and then sitting back and waiting for a laugh, that's wit, that is. Whereas that's not wit. It's just kind of cruelty and it's relatively easy to write. Whereas genuine wit with a capital W, that's hard to write. Yeah. And so that feels like a little bit of a cliche, this kind of notion that you can just, write nasty, spiteful things and then wait for people to congratulate you on your witty script.
Yeah.
And then the other cliche I put on my list, although I'm sure you have spotted many, many more, is kooky Brits with their cakes of British monuments and strange dress sense.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I presume it plays well in the States, but in a British cinema, even though it was getting big laughs, it felt an awful lot like kooky Brits with a capital K and a capital B.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who chose Olivia Coleman's costumes, but I don't know anybody who dresses like that. It's just too kooky.
Yes.
We're not like that in this country, believe me. Really. Yeah. I don't dress well, but we're not like that.
Well, one thing I'd say about the dress, this is not really Cliché Squad material, but I thought Olivia Coleman's clothes were terrible. The art director put her in these awful outfits that did no one any favors whatsoever. Yeah. They just stood out as being terrible. Very weird, flowery prints and just god-awful material. So
god-awful material. They should put that on the poster of the movie.
I like the kooky Brits thing because, and it also brings out the inauthenticity of their friendships. The American characters are all kind of stock characters, and I didn't see them being friends with them. It was very odd, but the story world is reduced to just, 6 friends or something like that.
Yeah, 2 of whom worked in the restaurant. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of goofy, and there's a scene where the Americans start saying sarcastic stuff and nasty stuff to one another, and it doesn't come off at all. And it's just another layer of inauthenticity. I think it was very odd. Like they say some really, really foul and nasty things to one another because they're practicing. They're impressed by the kooky Brits doing it, and it doesn't come off at all. It's very, and I don't know if it's played for humor, but it's odd because it just doesn't work too well. I don't think.
I mean, it's like it's not even unfunny enough to be funny because it's unfunny.
Yeah, it's mostly
just plain not funny.
Yeah, and awkward. I think it's the idea is that it becomes awkward. And I think, obviously in the writing, I think they're trying to develop this contrast between the kooky Brits who do it really, really well and the others don't take it seriously, even though I think the characters are, oddly enough, saying nasty things to one another in all earnestness. But it's funny when the Americans do it and it doesn't come off at all. So... But funny as in odd, not funny as in ha ha. It needed a bit more funny ha ha. the American gun-loving culture, even among the effete class, I couldn't believe that any one of those folks would go off and shoot guns as a hobby and have a lot of guns. So that was American gun lovers. So there's a little knock against both Americans and Brits here. I'm going to say promiscuous or oversexed gay waiter. I think that's a cliche we've seen a lot.
Yep. Yeah.
I wish there was more depth to that character. But truthfully, there's not tremendous depth to any characters, and it just comes back to ring on this bell that we've said again and again, inauthenticity. I didn't hate this film. It was a perfectly good watch. I didn't find a lot of depth to it. And it's, you've got likable actors doing some funny stuff here and there. So it has some saving graces, I suppose, but I'm not going to recommend it too wholeheartedly to the two-reelers out there for sure.
I'm glad you had a bearable time. I must say, I did rather hate this film. For a comedy, I would much rather sit and watch War of the Worlds again with Ice Cube. I had many more laughs out of that than
yes,
this,
you can go into it knowing it's a comedy. Then you change it. That changes War of the Worlds a lot. Yes.
Right. Let's have a break. Let's have a weird hors d'oeuvre that one of us is probably allergic to. And then we will come back and we will talk about the sort of mirror image of this film, 1989's The War of the Roses. So, like a plate spinning out of the hand of Kathleen Turner and straight towards the face of Michael Douglas, we're back.
Yes.
It's time to talk about the first filmed version of the story of the Roses. So we have watched the original War of the Roses from 1989. Directed by Danny DeVito.
Yeah, Danny DeVito. Wow.
And written by Michael J. Leeson. So I had to do a bit of research. So it will surprise you not that he was a big US sitcom writer.
Yeah.
He was writer on Happy Days, Partridge Family, Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yeah.
He was a writer on Taxi.
Yes, Taxi.
Hence the Danny DeVito connection.
Yeah.
Then later he was a writer on the Tracy Ullman Show. He's a writer on the Cosby Show. I'm not sure why people are putting that on the CV anymore.
Yeah.
I had never seen this film before. I think it just came out at the wrong time. Christmas 1989, I think I was just doing something else.
Yeah, probably.
So I'd never seen it before this week. You are the one who suggested that we compare these films together. Is this a waste of breath? Tell me why.
Do you have any other questions for me, Counsel?
I think it is. It might be a waste of time, too. But I have never seen it either. I don't think I had seen it. I had lived in Canada at that point, so we didn't necessarily get all the big American films.
Didn't have films back then. It was all Caribou and Snowballs.
But and honestly, I think when we were talking, I was looking for another film, and I think you're right. It was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is probably what I was thinking about. But I thought there was another version of The War of the Roses. So I thought there was something from the 60s with, I was convinced it was a Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor thing. So I was totally wrong. But this was vaguely in the back of my mind too. And I didn't realize, boy, they made Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas made 3 films together in a couple of years. And I think Danny DeVito was involved in all of them. I'm not sure. They did Romancing the Stone, Jewel of the Nile, and then War of the Roses within 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So it was a time when you probably grabbed material if you had the 2 hot actors at the time, and they had chemistry. You just stuck them in as many films as possible. So this is probably, I think this might have been the last one that they did together. But it was just and I think it was later that I heard that it was really a straight remake of it. So that the new one was a remake of The War of the Roses. So it just seemed natural. So I can't say that it was a really super creative and original insight that I had. It was more or less just that I was thinking of the wrong film. But we got the right title.
Admirably honest of you. So War of the Roses, released Christmas 1989. It cost $26 million to make it, and drew in $160 million at the box office.
Good money.
So yes, Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas were hot.
Yeah.
At the end of the 80s. The 3 of them had all worked together on those 3 pictures together.
Yeah.
So Danny DeVito, everybody knows from Taxi. Very funny guy. His first film on the director's chair was a while before this, The Ratings Game in 1984, a TV movie. Never seen it, never heard of it.
No, never heard of it.
After that, he directed an episode of the Spielberg TV series Amazing Stories. Then he made Throw Mama from the Train.
Oh, yeah,
with Billy Crystal. Have you seen that?
I can't say. If I have, I've forgotten it. So
It's 1987. Actually quite funny.
Yeah.
Although it's full of lots of these kind of weird, over fussy transitions between scenes.
yeah. Oh, wow.
Which is really notable, and you can see kind of some of that in this movie as well. I think Danny DeVito, just someone who really likes interesting, kooky cuts between scenes.
Yes.
Shall I tell you the story, which it turns out is a bit different to the previous story
A bit different.
of the War of the Roses?
Yes, please.
So, Barbara and Oliver Rose are a high-flying couple in Washington, D.C., with money, good looks, 2 beautiful children, and a dream house. But, despite everything being so perfect, they can't stop niggling. What to feed the kids, how to tell an anecdote to guests, and then one day, Oliver has a suspected heart attack, and Barbara comes to a shocking realization that she would actually prefer it if he died. Divorce is the only option, but then lawyers get involved, things go downhill. How far will each of them go to get the settlement they want?
Ooh.
Now, it's a bit of trivia. This film was so successful in Germany that the name of the film, I think Der Rosenkrieg, is now the German idiom for acrimonious divorce.
Oh, wow.
So any kind of acrimonious divorce now is referred to as a Rosenkrieg apparently in Germany.
Wow.
So you know you've made it when your film actually just becomes an idiom.
A German word. I mean, that's incredible. Wow.
Having never seen it before, I came away from this film thinking, actually, I think this is a little bit of a modern classic.
Oh.
I find the leads, very, very watchable. I think Kathleen Turner, just so great. I sort of realised watching this, I think you can draw a line between Lauren Bacall on one side of the piece of paper, for the voice, especially with Kathleen Turner, and then you can put Selena Gomez at the other side of the piece of paper for sassy body language, and you can draw a line between those two, and Kathleen Turner sits exactly halfway between them. Did you see the Kaminsky method, the Michael Douglas?
Michael Douglas as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I saw a little bit of it. Yes, I don't remember it very well, but yeah.
So I think Kathleen Turner turns up in that in one or two episodes as his ex-wife.
Oh, nice. Oh,
she makes this great turn as this kind of brassy broad, and she looks her age. She was huge in the late 80s.
Yes.
Early 90s. And then I didn't realise, I think she only made a small number of pictures after this rheumatoid arthritis.
Yes, yeah, she had
slowed her down.
Yep.
Which is a shame.
It is.
Yeah, such a watchable actor. I think she's fantastic. The film overall, kind of preposterous. It also does that sort of Home Alone thing, but I think it really skillfully builds it up. So I broadly didn't really notice it getting out of hand.
Oh, okay.
So it starts out relatively simple and fairly straightforward, and it doesn't start out as a bed of roses, ha ha ha. Right from the outset, the two of them are very slightly at loggerheads. They don't occupy exactly the same mental space, and you can just see the beginnings of that rift that forms between them. But it builds it, I think, very skillfully. It's a fairly brisk hour and 55 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
And I found it tremendously entertaining. I remember a lot of scenes. I think it's going to stick in my mind a long time. How did you find it?
For me, it was very similar to the remake, I thought. So, I mean, I think it's strong in the sense that it led to a remake that someone wanted to remake, and they thought it was good material. I watched these films in a really strange manner because I'd started The War of the Roses, and then I saw another film, and then I saw The Roses, and then I finished The War of the Roses. So I had two other complete films in my head before I'd finished, after I'd only seen half of The War of the Roses, and then I saw the last half of it. So it's probably not the ideal way to see it. But it felt very similar, and the tone to a certain extent is similar because of the over-the-top nature of how the relationship spins out of control and gets just crazy, with animosity and violence, and kind of just spins out of control in that way, the way their relationship does too as well. But I had the same sense that deep inside there was this love, and they do reconcile just the way the modern roses, I guess, just the way they do as well. So I think there's a touch of the same inauthenticity, but I think it's tonally, it's a bit more consistent in the other film. Like I don't think they ever venture even an essay into authenticity, if you know what I mean. Whereas this film just knows what it is. It goes over the top pretty fast, and it's fine with that. I think it's more comfortable with itself somehow as a film. So. I'll disagree. I don't think it would be a classic for me, but in hindsight, I was surprised to realize that I kind of liked this film more than the new one. So that says something for it.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about the book, because
maybe
the 1989 movie does follow the book pretty closely. The book, it's not very long. It's about 250 pages, something like that. It's a fairly sort of simple read. It was published in 1981, and it kind of reads a lot like a sort of 1970s novel. It's sometimes a little bit sort of excessively flowery with the language. It's quite interested in describing women's bodies. I mean, it feels a little bit kind of 70s and dated. There is an au pair character. So in the movie, she is this kind of German housemaid that they have. In the book, she is like a sort of 19-year-old sort of waif-like American au pair, and she comes across as a little bit of a middle-aged man's fantasy, because she can't wait to get the husband in bed the moment that the marriage starts to go rocky. And there are 2 or 3 slightly awkward sex scenes between them. But there are a lot of really amusing scenes in the book, which have sort of been kind of transliterated into the Kathleen Turner Michael Douglas film. So, like in the film, the wife hires a detective, and the detective runs over the cat. The wife kind of ruins the vintage wine by pouring vinegar in it. The husband exchanges the wife's sleeping pills for amphetamines. Ooh. She spikes his orange juice with LSD. Oh, he poisons her posh dinner with laxative. She crushes his Ferrari with a garage door. It's kind of similar beats, but a little bit different. The book it's visually written. It reads a little bit like a pitch for a movie with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner.
Okay.
So it's very easy to read the book and imagine being Danny DeVito or somebody at it Paramount? I'm trying to remember whose picture this was. Looking at the book and saying, I can see how this could be a picture. It lends itself to sort of cinematic imagery. And the climax of the book is almost identical to the movie. They are both stranded on a chandelier. The chandelier falls to the ground. They are both killed. It's very, very similar. Wow. So it goes through many of the same beats, a little bit remixed, but largely the same.
It sounds a bit more restrained at the very least, though. Would you say that's true?
No, I don't think so. There's a lot of craziness in the book. I mean, really, it goes kind of full Lord of the Flies, I would say, by the end. That in the book, they've boarded up the house, and she is hiding in the attic, and he is still kind of off his head on LSD. And,
okay, Jesus.
Like she spikes his drink with LSD, and then she paints the dog with like neon fluorescent paint. And so he thinks he's being attacked by this fluorescent monster, and it's all kind of a bit weird and strange. Yeah. And it's pretty over the top. I would say they've become more restrained in translating it to the screen.
Wow. What year? What year was the book? You said it was.
So it was published in 81.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm going to guess sort of it has the tone of late 70s. Though.
Okay.
And it's curious the things that they really value. They love these ugly Staffordshire pottery figurines.
Yes. Yeah.
Which seems like a very I mean, if it was rewritten today, they would collect vinyl records or sort of first edition books or something like that. It wouldn't be these weird pottery figurines. That's very difficult to empathize with.
Yeah.
But largely, they occupy a very, very similar space. So it wasn't a massive deal turning it into a script. We should talk about the opening and closing images again, only because that, I think, is the closest parallel with the new movie, The Roses. The opening credits to this film by Saul Bass and his wife, I think, is all kind of shot over, it's white fabric again, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the idea is it's like a gag, basically. I'm thinking, is it a wedding dress?
Yeah.
Is it a napkin?
Yeah.
Is it a tablecloth? And then at the end, you get this gag that it is a handkerchief, and Danny DeVito blows his nose on it. And I'm guessing the idea of those opening credits are to suggest this is a beautiful wedding, a marriage that has ended up just going down the toilet.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that is the gag they're aiming for, and it's broadly works. I suppose it's another one of those Danny DeVito slightly awkward, thinky transitions.
Yes.
And I guess that is why the opening to The Roses is also played over napkins.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of what they're aiming for. The closing image of the 1989 film is Danny DeVito telling his client to go home. Do you know who the client is, who never says a word? It is Dan Castellaneta. It was I've got to learn how to pronounce his name because he's been in every episode of The Simpsons. Dan Castellaneta. Help me out. I'm not going to.
You mean that guy from The Simpsons?
The guy from The Simpsons.
Oh.
It's that guy. He doesn't say a single word in this movie.
No, he doesn't.
It's the guy from The Simpsons.
You kind of know that he's not going to say anything pretty early on in the film, too.
Yeah. It's another kind of Tracy Ullman connection, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's a small group of friends making all these films together.
You got it, Dan Castellaneta.
So he tells the client to go home and patch it up with his wife. We cut to a sunset and we see snow falling on flowers.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of another sort of White Things finish, I guess. I think that's what they're sort of aiming for.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure that the closing image really means a great deal in this movie. I don't know.
Just felt like a natural place to go, probably. Well, there's this, I think you should mention, there's this device of, we're getting the whole story told by Danny DeVito, who's a friend of Michael Douglas's character, who is, what's his name in this one? Oliver? What's his name?
He's Oliver.
He's Oliver, yeah. And Danny DeVito plays, I think Gavin is his name. So he's telling the story to this character in his office. He's a lawyer, and he's explaining that this is the case that drove him back to smoking cigarettes and becoming a nervous lawyer again. And so I guess the point of telling the story is to tell this guy to go home and stay in his loveless marriage. Great advice from a lawyer.
Excellent advice. Well done.
I think if you take the messages away from these two films, they're not very positive about marriage. That's for sure. Yeah, there's some strange things in this film, and it's the aging of characters in both films is played with a little bit. Like Olivia Coleman, when we first see her in the 10 years earlier part of The Roses, she's been made to look much younger. And in this film, it's very strange because it starts out with the Oliver and Barbara, who will soon be married as the Roses, as their college kids.
Yeah,
and they're at an
teenagers,
auction in Nantucket. And I thought, this is really crazy. What college kids are supposed to have the money to go off to an auction in Nantucket and outbid each other? The meet cute is that they outbid each other for this little ivory sculpture that comes up later on. It just seemed like a miss to me, but then it gets them together in the same room. It just didn't seem. I don't know if that happens in the book or not, but that seems like a crazy.
It does. They do outbid each other for a little. It's a Staffordshire pottery figurine this time instead. Yeah.
So we're meant to assume that they're 20 years old or something like that, because it sounds like they're still in school, 2021, and they just don't look it. So the technology has changed. You can make Olivia Coleman look fantastic with makeup and maybe a little computer manipulation, but you can't make Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner look that much younger.
I did chuckle in that early scene because they leave the auction and it's raining.
Yeah.
And
oh yes. And I know what you're saying.
Kathleen Turner, exactly, is just wearing a white blouse and no bra, and she said, "I love the rain," and Michael Douglas says, "I love the rain as well," while staring directly at her nipples.
Yes,
it's sort of establishing the tone for the rest of the
get it out of the way in the first couple of minutes. Yeah. And similarly, they have sex pretty fast, and remember when we saw 3 Days of the Condor, there was this very plaid, quilty sex, and this is this forest green, satiny sex. It's very strange.
That was a weird thing. Yeah, what's with that sheet? That's weird. Yes.
Oh man, boy, that would be a reason not to have sex if you saw those sheets. So.
Really, if you're going to have sex with someone for the first time, you need something with a little bit more traction. I think Saturn is way too slidey. It's going to go wrong. I was going to make another clever point.
Better be good, because we were just having good sex jokes.
I can't believe I'm going to interrupt the sex jokes for this. It's not nearly as exciting as I hoped. In the book, the au pair has a reason to exist. In the story, so she is kind of having an affair and taking her clothes off. And,
exactly.
And Adler is kind of enjoying describing her take her clothes off. Yeah. But she also kind of rumbles that things aren't going right, and she almost rescues them at the end of the book, and she's the one who's trying to get into the house. In the movie, there is I presume, played for laughs. She's like German or Austrian or something like that, housekeeper. Mm-hmm. And I really struggle for any reason for her to be in the film. She is a character who's come over from the book. They've decided that Michael Douglas's character is not going to have an affair with the housekeeper. Yeah. And so she has no reason to be in the story. She does nothing. She adds nothing. It's either that they thought this would be an amusing character, and maybe in the late 80s, someone talking with a German accent was just funny. Mm-hmm. Is that how it was supposed to work? But otherwise, I don't understand why she's there, and she could easily be trimmed out and we would lose nothing.
Her big moment comes at the end where she goes back to she's going to collect her things. She's moving out because I think she's got another job or something like that. She gets out of it because she can see that the relationship is going to end. She might not have a job. So she's moving out. She comes back to collect her things, and it's a moment that I kind of like, but it could be easily deleted. It's that she suspects that something's going on. So she goes in there and she sees that they're about to kill each other, and she has this moment where she's a really emotional moment. She wants Michael Douglas to come out. She wants Oliver to come outside so she can talk to him. And he fools her and sort of steps outside, but he just gets rid of her because he's, as you said, he's boarded up the house. They're in there basically doing awful things to one another. And then that's enough for her to go off and get Gavin and bring Danny DeVito. So she's almost this link to get someone to come check out what's happening at the house. It's an interesting moment. And this comes after he's basically sexually assaulted his wife. And she bites his penis, as far as was implied, I think.
Yep.
Awful stuff. And I think like the last 10 minutes or so, they're dark. They're dark visually. It's all in a dark house where they're just destroying. And it's funny because I don't think there are any funny moments in the last 10 or 12 minutes. It goes just where it really wants to go, this very, very dark place. And it's not funny until basically that character who plays the potential client of Danny DeVito runs out because he would rather stay in his marriage than go through that. So it's not humorous in the last few minutes, I don't think. Were you laughing at any of that stuff?
They deliberately go darker than they need to in that final scene because, spoilers, the chandelier crashes to the ground, they both die. Yeah. Michael Douglas's character's last act, as he's alive, is to go and gently rest his hand on his wife's shoulder. Yeah. And Kathleen Turner's last act before she dies is to flick his hand away. So, they don't even hint at any kind of reconciliation. It's not that when they're facing death, they realize what's really important. Yep. No, they go for it 100%. They don't sugar the pill. Which I sort of admire that, I think, actually. It would have been easy to have a little bit of a sop to a happy ending at the end, and they don't. They stick to their guns. Good for them.
There's one line that I really like, and I think it's kind of a thematic line. Comes pretty late, so it's not like the theme being stated early on, but there's one point where Danny DeVito's doing one of his narration moments to the potential client, and he says that we come from mud. And he's sort of making this biblical reference, but I think it's like the mud that we throw at each other. Like we are made of mud. We're made of really pessimistic, evil things and materials, and we might start throwing that mud. And I thought that was for me, that was the theme, is that we come from mud. This is who we are. And it's obviously very pessimistic if you're suggesting that, humans are this muddy, dirty substance or material. That's not really cheery. It's not a cheery film. It might have some laughs, but I think that's the darker side of it in dialogue and and theme being stated.
Yep. I think there are some interesting parallels between these two films. I think it does have something to say about the changes in the world since 1989. But before I rant on about that, I'm going to force you to play my favourite game. Who am I?
Who am I?
I'm sorry. I said, "Oh my God!" I don't know if the two-reelers heard that, but I'm not
These
prepared.
microphones are
for some
very
reason.
sensitive.
I didn't put anything in that part of the document. Who am I? Oh God!
Quick! I'll cover. We're professionals. I came away from the roses.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this already, but reminding me of going out with comedians.
Yeah.
And all these kind of guys in their 30s trying to out joke each other, and it's a bit of a strange time in my life. And I'm not, I don't necessarily think fondly about all those evenings of trying to out joke each other. So I'm not going to suggest that. I will admit there are doctors in this week's films. So Michael Douglas thinks he's having a heart attack, and actually he just has a hiatus hernia.
Yeah.
But he sees a bunch of doctors. Not particularly good or charming doctors, but I do have to confess, I do often fantasize about telling a patient what one of the doctors says in the movies, which is that Michael Douglas says, "Am I going to die?" And he says, "Yes, but not today." And I do sometimes fantasize about telling a patient exactly that, but I've never actually said it.
Okay.
It's a bit of a dickish thing to say. I wouldn't actually say that.
Is.
But in my mind, sometimes I entertain the notion of saying it.
I think it's less dickish if you don't have much of a pause there. Yes, but not today. That's fine. If you say yes, but not today, then it's dickish.
Yeah, that's
isn't
bad.
it?
That is bad.
It's
You're
all
right.
about
Yeah.
timing. Shit. Ooh, okay. So that's who you are? The doctor who says that?
I can only presume that you can closely identify with Michael Douglas staring at Kathleen Turner's nipples.
It
in the
was a
rain.
great moment. He's not looking straight on, though. It's more like he's tailing her, but he knows what's happening in the rain, and he knows his fabrics well enough that there's a certain treat for him, I guess. Boy, this is hard. I think I'm Susan. Good homemaker, just trying to help the kids, take care of them, make sure that they're growing up well. And then, maybe making a little bit of an effort to stop some sort of tragedy from happening, but not working
the
too
peacemaker.
hard at it. Yeah. So I wouldn't want to get involved too much in that situation, but I'm going with Susan. And notice that I am going with a character who we both agree could be written out of the film very easily. So that might have something else to do with it.
You see yourself as entirely disposable.
Yes. Without a funny accent, but or maybe I do have a funny accent, but entirely disposable. Yes.
Right. There's nothing for it. We've got to do it. We'll see if we can draw these two films together. Well, two films about divorce, two films from the same source material, two films I came away feeling were very different, but I don't think you agree.
I don't, because I think the second film, The Roses, is so closely based on War of the Roses. And, I saw them both in a short window. That was probably a bad way to do it. But, I think, so many of the themes are the same. They both really dwell on the kids being fat, which is kind of weird, but that seems to, it ends up being a very important plot point, and I don't think it's that necessary. It's not that original. There's a slight change, in one film the wife wants the divorce, in the other film the husband wants the divorce. So I think the adaptation is kind of lazy because it doesn't really change it very much, or it certainly could have been changed a lot more, I guess. Just the really resting the whole story on people in love being absolutely awful to one another. I mean, I think that's the most important point of the film. And you just come away with these. I wonder a little bit about the zeitgeist in the air for both of these time periods, like 80s excess. this film was what, 1989, I think you said. So
Yes.
you've got all that 80s excess and gluttony, and the greed is good, right? Michael Douglas has just played Gordon Gekko on Wall Street, and there's all this greed being good. And then I think I guess it's coming back in the 2020s. I guess this is on some level an oligarchy kind of film, and just bad relationships. And people not being good to one another. So I think there's something in the air, and I think that's probably why this film resurfaced this last year. But I do have to say that I think that there's this real emphasis on materialism in the sense that, especially in the old film, I guess, like the things that they're destroying about one another are all these objects that they love, and they've invested value in a car or a sculpture or Staffordshire china or whatever. And these are the things that are getting destroyed. And maybe that's a metaphor for destroying more emotional or more psychological or more things that we identify with, that make us who we are. But it's really they're both kind of very materialistic. The house gets destroyed in the other film and the new film. And it's all about who gets the house, ultimately, both films. So I think there's a greater emphasis on, I think we've said it kind of again and again, these films are both kind of very superficial. So you're focusing on the material things and not really on the things that would make the relationship better. It's not a film about actually addressing marriage difficulties. And in fact, for me, the message I took away was these are cautionary tales of marriage. You should either stay in a bad and violent marriage or don't get married at all, or you solve your problems with loved ones with just these over-the-top violent acts. So neither film really does marriage a good service, I don't think. But I'm just getting started. Let's have you jump in there and see what you think.
I think off the back of this year's film, I can't wait until IKEA starts selling a table that has a dagger embedded in the surface.
It's coming soon.
It's only a matter of time. I really feel I feel like you've reached through the internet and read my notes. I've written here,
wow.
War of the Roses has a bit of Gordon Gekko in it.
Yeah,
a bit of greed is good. The moral of the story is a simple one. Clinging on too hard to possessions is what will destroy you.
Yeah.
It's suffused with 80s yuppie materialism.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, that's exactly what this film is. I think The Roses kind of flips it insofar as I think both of these films, like they are products of their times, but their times are kind of different. The Roses feels to me quite 2020s insofar as it seems to me to suggest the substance of what you say and what you do in that film actually kind of isn't important. I think the film's suggesting everything is fleeting.
Yeah.
Meals are made and consumed.
Yeah.
Buildings are built and fall down. You can buy a vintage cooker, but it'll probably blow up.
Yeah.
You can spend a lot of money on expensive moss, but it still burns the same way as the local moss.
Yeah.
And like the conclusion of all that isn't. But the film doesn't conclude that you should value more important things than these physical possessions. You should value your family, loved ones, and connections. I think that the conclusion that the new movie comes to is that everything is going to burn. So your main imperative is to try and think of something funny and pithy to say as it's all ending around you.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep.
I think it's like The Roses seems to come from a place where sincerity has died, and instead it's all about likes and retweets.
Yes.
The retweets are the point of life's journey.
Yeah.
If you can say something funny in 127 characters, then you have discovered the meaning of life, and that's what's truly important.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of felt about the movie in the end.
Yes. I think both of the films they're a little heavy-handed at this, but I think both films really harp on the demise of American culture somehow. And you get it through a sort of somewhat British eyes. Obviously, as you said, you get an Australian writer working with Americans and putting a British couple in it, but I think it's ultimately about American culture just sort of falling apart. And the earlier, it's funny that, 40 years apart or 46, no. My math is terrible. 36 years apart or something like that. The theme is still there. There's not much nice to say about American culture in either film. But you're talking about the 80s, which is definitely this bizarre consumerist era of excess, and now we've got it's just as consumerist, I guess, but it's more about attention. Attention has become the commodity, I think, human attention, and attracting it and liking it or not liking it. But I think both films are pretty heavy on that theme.
So heavy on it that even I spotted it, yes. The other kind of parallel, I think, is I think both of these films really look like what they almost certainly are, which is films where the casting came first.
Yep.
I think I think people were looking for a third pairing of Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner.
Yep.
They had already had this proven on-screen chemistry.
Yep.
They wanted to work together again. Work with Danny DeVito. Let's get the band back together again.
Yeah.
We're going to avoid the sort of the lovey-dovey ending of Romancing the Stone.
Yeah.
But let's still take advantage of this chemistry.
Yeah.
What project can we build around them? And the Roses again. It feels like we have these two sort of pretty successful, internationally known British actors.
Yeah.
Of similar ages. They both have a bit of a following.
Yep.
Let's put them in a project together. But I personally feel this is sort of the wrong project for them. I don't think they have the same chemistry together that Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner do.
I don't think it's smart enough for them. I think they should be doing a much smarter film.
Well, that's a lovely. Actually, there we go. So if you meet either one of them at a dinner party in the next week, you can hold your head high, saying, "Well, I slagged off your film, but because it wasn't smart enough for you."
Well, I could almost see a remake, a shorter one, I hope, of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I think that would be a better film for those two, honestly. And that way they could authentically do what they do in The Roses.
That is a much better idea.
Yeah.
Why didn't someone suggest that?
Yeah.
Yep. As usual, off the top of your head, you've had a better idea than people who got paid an awful lot more than you and me.
Oh, darn it.
Well, after solving all the problems of the film industry, we have just enough time to talk about what else has been playing at this theatre. I'm going to barge to the front of the queue here, only because I know that my one is going to be both a joy and a bit of a disappointment.
Go.
This week, we went to the local Odeon to see Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Ooh, what?
For some reason, there is a September of Spielberg playing locally.
Oh.
The first three Indiana Jones films are all showing at the big screen. Jaws is showing at the big screen at my local.
Yep.
Fantastic. So we went to see Raiders again. Probably, I don't know, the 6th, 7th time I've watched it. 1981, Spielberg's sort of fairly low-budget bounce back after the failure of 1941, made in 73 shooting days for $20 million. It's still a bit racist, still a bit problematic, and it still features some of the most perfect sequences ever made, I think. I think it's packed with creativity, little miracle of a film. Not a little miracle of a film, a great big 70mm miracle of a film. Just fantastic. So even though, seeing it for 7 times or more, still kind of pretty perfect. I think it's way up there.
I feel like we saw it on the pod. What, it was 2 years ago?
We did see it on the pod like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
I only saw it quite recently. I've gone to see it again. Well, what have you seen? I hope something a little more original than me.
Oh, goodness. I jammed it in this week. Boy, I saw a documentary on the American artist Georgia O'Keeffe. I don't know how familiar people are with Georgia O'Keeffe in
Big Flowers.
In the UK, Big Flowers. A great documentary on her life called The Brightness of Light. Really good. Then yesterday I saw a film called The Last Class, which is about Robert Reich, who was Secretary of Labor in the Clinton administration. So he's great legal background, political background, a real champion of the left right now. And they filmed his last semester of teaching at the University of California out in Berkeley. And that was a fantastic story, and he just like subtly optimistic in these dark times. The film that sticks with me the most right now is, I don't think anyone's going to like this film, but I loved it. It's called Architecton.
Right.
It's a documentary. It's basically about rocks, and then there are a couple trees in the film as well.
Who's not going to love this film?
I know,
It sounds fantastic.
Rocks and trees. It feels similar to those the Koyaanisqatsi, Powasqatsi films, Baraka films.
Or the best scene in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah. That faster rocks, more violent rocks. Those were slow rocks. I love that. These are fast rocks. It's basically
fast rocks.
It opens with these images of Ukraine. Bombed out buildings, neighborhoods that are just destroyed, and these buildings that are just kind of half standing and crumbling. So there's this destruction element to it, but it's sort of just visually. There's very little dialogue. They do follow this one architect in Italy, but it's sort of showing how rocks are mined and then turned into structures. and then kind of destroyed all over again. And there's this comparison to these buildings, and the architects in the film sort of bemoan this, that they used to make structures that would last thousands of years, and they show you a lot of ruins as well. But they also show you these crappy buildings, and these are architects, world-class architects, who are occasionally just offended by their own work because they're using concrete, they're not using rock. And then the ultimate, oh my God, the build-up is to this ultimate scene, the massive payoff of, we've been watching a quarry. These quarries where it almost looks like terraced earth, like they take away. And they're cleaning up the earthquake in Turkey. And they're basically it's all these heavy equipment machines. So you can imagine all these backhoes and all these dump trucks. They're taking all this contaminated rubble with iron pipes coming out and electrical cords and just plastic and garbage mixed into the rubble and the rocks. And they're basically creating this terraced dump of rocks after humans have processed it. And then it's the shot opens up to the point where you see, oh, that's the quarry where they're taking the rock from Earth, and this is what humans do to that and return it to the Earth as a dump of garbage rock. And it's fantastic because it's really about humans and what we've made of the Earth. And, they're really honing in on this idea that architecture determines human behavior. And if you build crappy buildings that are not meant to last, then people are going to treat them like trash, and they just become trash. But it's just crazy because there's all this busy activity of turning the rubble of the earthquake into the exact replica, although the sort of like the yin and yang, it's the negative replica of the quarry where they've been mining the rock earlier. It's about rocks and a couple of trees, but Architecton. I don't know. I loved it. It's very, very visual, very contemplative, and the ending shot is just phenomenal. It's just really well done. So,
I feel like in the last 90 seconds, I have done more architectural research than the entirety of the production team for The Roses did when researching the character of Benedict
Good point.
Cumberbatch.
They should have watched that because there's an Italian architect who's, the whole story is being played out with cutting back and forth to him just putting in a simple circle of rocks in his garden. He wants a stone circle. And it's interesting. That's just why he wants it. He wants something to last. And it's mesmerizing. I love it. I don't think it's for everyone, but I think it's the kind of thing that if you could find it online, start watching it and see where it takes you, because it's going to take you somewhere, and maybe you only watch a few minutes, but it's visually just it's really, really mesmerizing. So it's good filmmaking. It's very good filmmaking.
For the next few podcasts, you can legitimately tell me that you would rather be watching Rocks than whatever it was we choose to watch next time.
Well, that sort of brings us to our films next time. I probably would watch Rocks more than...
Then, well, I'll quickly do the socials.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm going to keep the audience hanging on. It's so exciting. What's next? On Instagram, we are at 2 Real Cinema Club. We're on Blue Sky with the same handle. You can read the blog, 2realcinemaclub.com, comment on our YouTube channel, or email us, 2realcinemaclub@gmail.com. So next time you've waited, we will deliver. I'm going to close with a quote from The War of the Roses. When Kathleen Turner looks over the balcony and she says, "What fresh hell is this?" We are going to go and see Honey Don't, the new Ethan Coen picture. Yeah. And we will be comparing it to
The Big Sleep.
Oh, yes.
Oh, man.
So at least one of those pictures is going to be dynamite. Maybe they both will. I'm going to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Or maybe we would rather be watching Rocks.
I know one is definitely going to be dynamite, yes. Oh, yeah, they use dynamite for rocks. When they explode the rocks, they use dynamite. Good point.
It's like a poem. It rhymes. So, thank you for joining us, as always. Be careful of your pottery figurines. Be careful who you marry. And we will see you next time.